What's up Fit Fam? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's the first time you see my content, welcome. And today we're going to talk about what shoes should you wear when you go to the gym and why. So choosing the right shoe when you go to the gym is essential if you want to get the most out of your sessions, and also it's a safety precaution as well. Whether it be lifting, F45, running, you want to make sure you got the right footwear. So my background is as a personal trainer, but in a past life when I was studying at university, I actually used to work at Rebel Sport, which is a sporting goods retailer here in Australia, and I sold footwear. So I've got 3 years experience actually selling shoes to thousands of people. I've sold thousands of shoes across this time. I've been product trained by all the big players such as Asics, Nike, New Balance, Under Armour, you name it. So I've got a lot of experience in this, not just from using them myself and for my clients, but also as a seller. Now for the sake of this video and to keep it nice and short, I'm just going to stick to shoes you wear to the gym, and I'm going to split it into 3 categories. Number 1 is going to be cardio shoes that you'd wear to something like an F45, a functional center, or even CrossFit. Number 2 are going to be weight shoes or shoes you would use for lifting. And number 3 are going to be running shoes. I'm going to start off with cardio shoes. So I'd define these as multi-modality or multi-functional, such as your cardio days for F45. Or if you're doing any type of session where you're doing different types of movements such as running, jumping, lateral movements, and maybe even some lifting, these are the type of shoes I'll be going for. So I'm looking for 2 things when it comes to these shoes. Number 1 is the performance of them, and number 2 is also the longevity. Because there's so many different movements that you're looking for, you want a shoe which is a bit of an all-rounder. Something which is good for lateral movements, side to side, vertical movements such as running, and also jumping, so up and down movements as well. I'll explain how you look for all of those within one pair of shoes, but one of my favorites is the Nike Metcons, as it covers so many bases. Now Nike do a range of hybrid shoes where they mix 2 types of shoes together, and the outcomes of these are actually really good when it comes to things like F45. Now for those that aren't aware, the Nike Freeze is made as a running shoe, which is made to be very, very light. We do want to have a light shoe when it comes to cardio. Their Metcon range is designed for lifting, so it's very firmly planted on the ground, and it's designed to basically get the most out of your lifts. Now the first thing I'd look for, and this is performance related, is that it's light. You want to make sure you have a light shoe for this one. If you're wearing Metcons or something that's quite heavy, it's actually going to weigh you down. So when it comes to lateral movements, what you want to look for is you want to have a bit of width through the midsole here as well. Now if you're doing some movements where you're going from side to side or you're changing direction quickly, if you don't have that, it's actually going to be quite hard and put a lot of pressure on the shoes on the outside. Often as well, I don't know if you can see it there, you can actually see there's a bit of a drop on each side there too. A lot of shoes that are lifting shoes will have that, and a lot of running shoes won't. The reason it'll do that is because it's designed to dig into one side and then dig into the other side, and particularly when you're flat-footed as well, it just keeps you nice and stable. So you want to have a slight tilt there as well. Because we're also doing some vertical movements, you do want to have quite a bit of flex in the shoe. You can test this by just grabbing the toe and pushing back. So this one is very flexible. They don't need to be quite this flexible, but because it is a free hybrid, it is going to have that there too. Something I'd also look out for is on the outside of the shoes there, often the midsole can come into the stitching a bit there too. Now this will help your longevity of the shoe, particularly if you're moving from side to side. Now, can you wear running shoes to F45 cardio? Absolutely. In fact, one of my favorites is the Epic Reacts from Nike. I also wear the Sonic 4s from Under Armour. These are great shoes to wear there. Just bear in mind that you sometimes when you wear running shoes that don't have too much stability on the outside, you can start to almost have like little breaks in the shoe there, and it just means you need to replace your shoes more often. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you want to have something which is going to be safer, also helps with those lateral movements, you want to be looking for that as well as the width as we spoke about earlier. Now the last thing I probably look for is how much stability is on the heel of the foot and also on the midsole, which suits me. Now I've got flat feet, I do roll in a little bit, but I actually wear neutral shoes when it comes to F45 or cardio. These shoes in particular have quite a high heel, as you can see there. It's actually quite firm as well, considering the shoe. And they're a neutral shoe on the inside. I'll explain more about what that is when I get to the running shoes. So some of my favorites, and I'll put this in the description down below, the Nike Free Metcons are right up there. These are the Sonic 4s from Under Armour. Now these are technically a running shoe, but they've got quite a wide base. They're quite firm and quite sturdy, and they're quite light. So I found this to be really good. I've got the Epic Reacts, which again are technically a running shoe, but they're very light and I love them and they've really held up well. And I've got the Nike Free Cross Trainers too. So I actually wore these ones to the playoffs. And again, these are one of the Nike's hybrid shoes. Now, next one I want to go into are your lifting shoes. So these are the shoes you wear when you're doing squats, deadlifts, any heavy lifting exercises where you want to have your feet firmly planted on the ground. These are 2 of my favorite. I've got the Nano from Reebok and I've got the Nike Metcon as well. You can also get the Tri-Base from Under Armour. They're all really, really great shoes. I'm going to explain why. So what you want to be looking for in your lifting shoes are something which is going to keep you really stable and allow you to get the power out of the movement instead of anything lost within the shoe. Now the Metcons are a very, very sturdy shoe. Firstly, the base is really wide. So it's got a wide base which is going to keep you firmly planted on the ground. Second thing I look for is it's got good grip. You want to have good grip so that way you're not moving around too much. In fact, you want to lessen that as much as you can so all the energy and all the output is going straight into the lift itself. The third thing I'll be looking for is how stable it is on the outside here. Now Metcon actually it comes up from the midsole, which actually holds the upper in with your foot. And you want to have that too, because again, you don't want to be moving around too much side to side when you're in the middle of a squat or something heavy going for a PR. You want to have that stability there. And there's also a bit of longevity behind the shoe as well. Now, the next thing I'll be looking for, and this is probably the most important, and that is that the shoe is nice and flat. They don't need to be perfectly flat, but you want to have your foot stable on the ground when you're doing your lifts. You're not running, you're not going forwards and backwards, you're not jumping. You want to keep it on the ground. This is why often you see people using things like Converse because they're really, really flat, and that's fine for lifting as well. But again, a lot of your top end brands are going to have shoes like this, which will help you out there. It can have a little kip at the front, nothing wrong with that one, but it shouldn't have too much flex either. These ones actually aren't too bad. If they have less flex, that's totally fine for lifting as well. One other thing I'll be looking for is also how stable is it through the upper. Now, sometimes shoes will have a higher heel, so things like the Reebok Nanos, quite a high heel, sometimes a little bit lower, personal preference on that. You also want to have your upper and your laces in nice and tight. Again, you don't want your foot rocking around at all when you're doing lifts. You want it to be firmly in the shoe firmly on the ground, so that way all the power is straight through your body as well. And these are the things you'll be looking for when it comes to your lifting shoes. All right, next up are your running shoes. Now, choosing your running shoes, out of all the different categories, these are the ones you probably want to be the most particular with, particularly if you're road running. There's a lot of wear and tear which is happening on your body, a lot of wear and tear which is happening on your joints, and you have to get the shoes which suit your feet. I'm going to go through the things I look for when it comes to running shoes. Now, my first tip before I jump into, I suppose, the what about the running shoes is choose a brand which works for you and reduces your injuries. Now, I pretty much exclusively run in Asics because they just suit my feet. There's no other reason why. I've tried multiple different brands. While I've loved some of them, I've always seemed to come back to Asics. They just suit my feet better. I've never had a single issue with them, but I also know people that use New Balance exclusively, Brooks, Under Armour, all those kind of brands as well, but it's got to suit you. Okay, now what are we looking for with running shoes? Firstly, you have to know what type of foot you have. You'll either have a neutral, which means it's just going forwards and back. You might pronate, which is the majority of people, which means as you hit, you'll roll in a little bit, or you might supinate, which means you actually roll on the outside of your feet. If you don't know, go get a check at your local store and they'll check your gait, which is how you run, so that way you know for yourself. Once you've got this, I'd be looking for cushioning, stability, and performance. Firstly, I'm going to start with stability. Now, on a stability shoe, on the midsole here, it's going to have basically a more dense material which stops you rolling in too much. When you run, you land on the outside of your foot and you start to roll in like that. If you have a tendency to pronate in a lot more than other people, by having a more dense material there, which means you won't over pronate, which means you won't be doing too much damage to your ankles. So shoes like your Kayanos, for example, your GT series, these are ones which are going to have a more stable midsole. The way you usually can identify that one is on the midsole, it's normally a different color. I don't have a stability shoe on me at the moment. I actually run in the Nooses from Asics. They work with me really well. I know I said earlier I've got a stability foot, but I've just found these to be so comfortable. But you'll be able to see, usually they'll have a different color around this part of the shoe, and it'll normally have a name there too, whatever the technology is for that brand. If you have a neutral foot, you want something that doesn't have that because it may push you out too much as well. So you want to have just a midsole, which again, probably is the same color all around because they'll try to identify it for those people that need that support on the inside. Next thing I'll be looking for is the cushioning. Now this is really important to protect your ankles, your knees, your hips, everything when you run. Road running can be one of the most dangerous things to your joints and also the way your body operates, so you please put attention to this as well. So you want to have something which has cushioning throughout the shoe, particularly in the heel. The heel strike is the part of the gait, the run, which basically has the most impact. And if there's nothing there to basically take a little bit of that pressure away, it's going to be taken through your joints, your knees, your hips, and your ankles in particular. So Asics have the gel. Brands have different elements. I mean, there's the Air from Nike. There's also different technologies within different brands. Have a look for it and make sure there's some kind of cushioning through the heel. Sometimes they have it even higher up on the midsole as well. Now when you look at running shoes, often you can actually feel the difference, and you actually see it. So when you push down, depending on what the technology is, you might see the gel come out or whatever it might be depending on that brand, and that gives you an indication of how much cushioning there is in the shoe. So you can actually push it in, you can see it, you can test it. It should feel like it bounces a little bit. So when you're testing it out in the store, have a go at it, have a little jog around. I know it looks a bit silly, but it's so worth it, and you should be able to feel that a little bit. And that's why often with running shoes, you actually see the heel is more elevated than the front. Sometimes it's 4, 6 millimeters, just depending on the shoe. Sometimes it's 10. It just depends on that one. But again, it's to get that impact reduction from the heel strike all the way through to the toe off at the front. Now the next thing I'll be looking for is also the flexion in the shoe. So how much is it going to flex when I'm running? You want to have shoes that do this, because you are going for that vertical movement. You're going forwards and backwards. So you want it to have some flex there and also be light. This is for performance reasons. The heavier the shoes weigh, the slower you're gonna run. Really simple. That's why all the top brands with their marathon shoes, where they're trying to take away a couple of grams, because it does make a difference, particularly if you're focused on performance. So if the shoes flex a little bit, it actually reduces the amount of tension that you need to have with your foot, because it'll work with you. And also if it's lighter, it's gonna help you out in terms of your speed. Now the next thing I'll be looking for is the upper. Now the upper just wants to basically firmly secure your foot in. So often with running shoes, the laces will be normally more on the outside than they will with a traditional gym shoe, because it's trying to follow the contour of your foot. You have a bone on the medial side of your foot which lifts it up slightly on the inside, so you want the laces and the foot and the upper to match that structure. With the upper, I'd go for comfort. Am I not rocking around too much? And is it working with me in my natural gait? So again, look at the stability. Is it the right one for me? The cushioning is going to help you protect your joints in the heel and also in the front of the foot. Making sure you've also got a nice light pair which has good flex, and the upper is nice and comfortable on your foot. These are the main things I'll be looking for when it comes to your running shoes. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to share this video, and would also love if you could subscribe down below. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and I can try to help you out get the best shoes for you. But I want to make sure you guys are getting the best out of your sessions each and every time, and also just protecting yourself so that way you can keep training longer and getting better results. Thanks guys, and enjoy.